All right, let me show you what I would do for the 100-man leagues. This stuff is really pretty simple. I would go to like a teamrankings.com and keep an eye on these numbers because they're pretty telling in some cases. Okay, we've only got 3 teams on the slate. How are we going to narrow this down to target teams? Well, common sense tells me that if a team struggles with pitching, then we should target the opposing offense, right? So if I sort this column in the pitching stats, earned runs per game, then I see Cincinnati's the worst pitching staff on this slate, right? So automatically I'm targeting Toronto. Problem is Toronto's not a great offense right now. They've got potential, but they're not a great offense. Um, Not much else shows up until we get down to Arizona and the Cubs. And this is not like a horrible pitching staff per se. It's middle of the road in a 30-team league. And being that it's middle of the road, that just means, could be good, could be bad, depends on the pitcher. Okay. So the only bad pitching staff, really truly bad pitching staff is Cincinnati. So that puts Toronto in a good spot. So, make a note of that. Then I come over to the offenses and who is scoring runs? Well, Dodgers, Giants, they're not on the slate. Yankees are. So Yankees get a check mark. They're in a good spot. They're playing Chicago, who isn't like the best pitching staff in the world. They're not the worst. And I come down here, and again, there's really not much on this list at all. You get down in here, now you're bottom half. And this is where you're finding your Cincinnati's, your Chicago's, your Arizona's. They don't score a ton of runs per game. So they're not in great situations. But, it's a small slate. We don't have a lot of options. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden these guys become great options. They still suck, you know? So I'm looking at Toronto, New York Yankees, and because of the weaker pitching staffs, I might look at some Arizona and some Chicago. I probably will not be on Cincinnati bats. Probably will not be on Chicago White Sox bats, which means in a volatile world like baseball, if those guys go off, they're going to be very, very low owned. But in a 100-man league environment, you really don't typically need those guys to still get in that top 12. You don't need to get so cute that you take suboptimal choices. You can stay pretty optimal. These are great training grounds for, teaching you to become a better player, a more fundamental player, and more importantly, learning when to stay with the herd and when to get off the herd. I think that we overvalue getting different and being unique. And although that's an important skill to know, there are contests where it's more important than others. And these 100-man leagues, it's not that important. You can pretty much just study and get good at picking out who's in a good spot. So another thing you can go to, obviously, is the research station. And when you carve down the research station to only the 6 teams that are on the slate, now you can go into the pitching stuff and you can start looking at who are the pitching staffs, right? Who are the pitchers that are on the slate? And I might look at a home run per 9. What pitcher struggles at giving up the long ball? Well, 2.97 for Hunter Green. That's Cincinnati's pitcher. Again, puts Toronto in a good spot to hit a couple of bombs today. On average, Hunter Green gives up 3 home runs per 9 innings. If he goes 3 innings today, he might give up a bomb. If he goes 6 innings today for whatever reason, he might give up 2 bombs. That's what that number is kind of telling you. Maybe it's a bad day for him and he gives up 4 bombs. Maybe it's a good day and he doesn't give up any. I don't know the answer to that. But what I know is that he typically is susceptible to giving up home runs. So that puts Vladimir Guerrero, maybe, who's not swinging the bat well right now, but maybe in a good spot. Teoscar Hernandez maybe in a good spot. Bo Bichette maybe in a good spot. Those types of guys that have a little bit of power. And you could go into the trends tab and see which ones of them are swinging hot bats right now. It isn't going to be many in Toronto, but you can't argue that Toronto's in a great matchup today to explode. So it makes sense to play them. You're just using the tools at your disposal. These bottom 3 guys let up a lot of hits and a lot of innings pitched comparative to the slate. These guys, all outside of maybe Hunter Green's 3.98, these guys give up a lot of Sierra, meaning their ERAs should be near 4 to 5. So again, any of these bottom 4 pitchers, including Hunter Green, are probably good targets. Arizona, Cincinnati, Chicago, and Chicago. These pitchers are probably good targets, which means the Cubs, the Blue Jays, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the New York Yankees. Guess what? Those are the 4 teams that I picked out just on the team rankings alone. So Research Station verifies that these are the teams we should probably be paying some attention to. That might mean the other two pitchers are the better pitchers to choose from or to take advantage of. And then we could look at like a K score or something for that. See, nobody's got a high K score, so this isn't going to be a great pitching slate regardless, even if you're paying money. This could be more of a crapshoot, wide open pitching slate where you may want to include some people, but you can go to ownership reports if you can find them and figure out probably Manoah and Cortez are going to be the highest two owned pitchers anyway, right? You look at these W scores, these are bats, and again, it's pointing to those same four offenses, those bottom four offenses. If I go to the actual hitting page, I can do some work there. If I go to the trends page and just isolate down to Toronto and New York on this slate, let's do Arizona, Chicago. I guess we could do some Cincinnati. Maybe a hot hitter sitting in there. New York Yankees and Toronto, right? Those are the 6 teams. Apply that filter. Only look at the teams on the early slate. Come over here to like the WOBA trends. WOBA is a great number for just all around who's hitting and who's not. ISO is great for power, home runs and whatnot, but WOBA is great for reaching base as well as hitting for power because it obviously is a weighted on-base average towards the bigger numbers. So if I go like 13 days or 14 days, and see who's hot, we can do 14 days. It's a little sustained heater. These are the guys that are hitting. I want plate appearances to be over about 20, so I'm not looking at Christopher Morel with a whole lot of confidence, that these numbers are going to be all that accurate. Still a little bit of a small sample. But, if I'm looking in these guys, let's see what teams. Chicago, New York. Okay, so the only 2 New Yorks are Donaldson and Stanton. Those would be 2 guys I would consider. There's Arizona. Arizona might be a good stack today. See what I'm doing? Chicago, not a lot of Cubs. Probably wouldn't use too many Cubs. I might use like a New York 4x2, 4 Arizona, 2 New Yorks. I still think that Toronto's in a good spot, even though their numbers are not great recently. I still think they're in a good spot. I might sprinkle in some Toronto. Espinal would be a guy I might use. Springer, Kirk, maybe, probably, I don't know. But the rest of the guys are obviously running pretty cold. So, there's some Chicago White Sox, but they're not in necessarily a great spot against Nestor Cortez. So this is all that this is telling me as I go through the slate and kind of look at it and kind of pick it apart. Maybe my original plan of Toronto and New York has changed to more of an Arizona, New York, being that the pitcher they face and Arizona's running some hot bats. I'm not worried about ownership necessarily. I'm not worried about where's my leverage, where's my this, where's my that, because I don't need it in these 100-man contests. Running a 4-stack of Arizona is probably contrarian enough. It's not going to be probably all that chalky. It makes sense. They're swinging hot bats. They're facing, a middling to relatively weak pitching staff. And that's all I need. It needs to happen. Will it happen? I don't know. They might only score 2 or 3 runs today. But it could happen. It makes sense that it could happen. There's a couple of hot Cincinnati bats. You want to run Naquin and Stevenson? Here's what you could do. 4 Arizona bats, 2 New York Yankees bats, and then a Chicago Contreras type one-off, a Espinal one-off, maybe a Naquin one-off. You're different. You're plenty different, and you're using numbers to make sense of the situation. This is how you get better at baseball. You start constructing better lineup. You can hand build that lineup. You don't need a domination station for that. But if you do want to use domination station, you might do your stacks. Let's build 20 lineups. Let's put 20%, 25% maximum on these 4 teams. Toronto, New York Yankees, Chicago, Arizona, maybe even the Chicago White Sox. And let's put it that way. I'm putting a 25% cap on those stacks, so the domination station will get out of Arizona if it loves them, or out of the Yankees if it loves them, and it will start building stacks with Arizona or with the Chicago Cubs. And then if I start seeing these names popping up in a lot of my lineups because they're not only hot hitting right now, but they're projecting well also, then I'm going to favor a lineup that looks like that. It may be a 3 Arizona, 3 Yankees, 2 Toronto, 3 Arizona, 2 Yankees, 2 Chicago White Sox. But whatever the mix in the match is, something's going to appeal to me, and that's a lineup that I would take and put in these 100-man leagues. It is stacked. It isn't overly stacked all the time. Sometimes it's 4x4 or a 4x3. A lot of times it's 3x3 or a 3x2. Doesn't matter. It's correlated though. It's using sensible pitchers. It's using sensible team offenses, sensible bats. And those lineups tend to do pretty well. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit of where to use these tools, how to use these tools, how to kind of think about building these lineups. And then you might dive into FanDuel and start hand building. Keep this page open. Go back and use it as a resource. When I'm searching for a one-off, David Peralta, fine, use them. You know? I mean, Justin Steele isn't like the world beater pitcher type anyway. Or I run up on a Josh Rojas or a Luis Roberts or a Mike Moustakas. They're all swinging relatively hot bats. Ketel Marte, Wilson Contreras, whatever. I might end up using some of those guys. I don't know. I might tweak the lineup that I'm building and then need a bat or two late that's cheap. So then I look at Alex Thomas at $2,500 and go, there you go. He's cheap. Or maybe I do use Christopher Morel on a short sample size and take a bit of a chance on him. These are all questions that you have to answer for yourself as you're kind of wiggling through your lineup builds, because nobody can answer these questions for you, because nobody can tell you. They can tell you if a guy's in a good matchup or not. They can't tell you how successful he's going to be today. Nobody knows that. So that's why I favor building a few different lineups. I might build an Arizona and a New York, and then I might build a Toronto and a New York, and then I might build an Arizona and a Chicago, or a Chicago White Sox in New York, or whatever it is. I'm just mixing and matching, staying within those offenses I like. I will not be building a Cincinnati stack today, probably. At best, it would be a little mini stack with a couple of those hot hitters. So, again, this is just how you think through a slate, how you use these numbers, use these tools to kind of point you in good directions, and then build up a sample size of, I've done this, 50 times. How are my results looking? Because then it's time to start looking at, am I getting good results or not? If I'm not getting good results, what am I maybe doing wrong? Am I playing low-owned teams? Am I getting too cute? Or, am I just getting unlucky? Or, whatever the case may be. That's what the coaches are for. That's what we can kind of help you dig into in your game. If we talk back and forth and share some details, sometimes we can find that stuff out. But in the meantime, on the very early only slate, this is where we go. I'll be in a minute with a player pool for cash games, and you're going to want to use a lot of those guys in your 100-man league lineup builds as well, because they're just going to make sense. So, that said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.